Hi guys, so it's me, Nicolette Mashile, and today I want to talk a little bit about rental deposits and the relationship between the landlord and the tenant. But remember that none of my videos constitute as financial advice. If you are looking for financial advice, please do consult somebody who is certified and registered with the FSCA, or probably somebody who knows something about tenants law and landlord law, Housing Tribunal Act, and all those various things, right? So let's jump straight into the conversation. What is actually the deposit? Basically, the deposit is an insurance that the landlord would take from you for in case you damage their property, and that's the amount of money that they will then subtract any replacement of, whether it is painting the house, cleaning the house, replacing their grass that you might have killed with your feet and your friends. If you have kind of like made holes in the wall, that's the amount of money. That's where they're going to actually subtract their amount of money, right? So that basically is a deposit. How much can they charge you as a deposit? That is at the discretion of the landlord, but it also needs to be stipulated in your agreement lease. So you need to agree to it and say, yes, I'm agreeing to the fact that I'm going to pay 1 month, 2 months, a full rental as a deposit. And you need to know exactly how much it is that you're paying. Obviously, landlords will determine their deposit based on, one, your credit worthiness, number two, also your affordability, and number three, whether or not the house is really that expensive and it takes a whole lot more money to fix it if you do damage it. So if they've used some fancy paint inside, they might just charge you a very high deposit. But at the same time, the landlord is not trying to charge a deposit that is going to be to make it impossible for him to actually get tenants, right? Remember that the deposit as a tenant is money that you will get back at the end of the lease period. So what situations create that you don't get your deposit back? There are various situations where you will not get your deposit back. But before we get into that, what are some of the things that you're supposed to do to ensure that you will actually get your deposit back? Number one, you need to do what we call an incoming inspection. When you do an incoming inspection, you need to do it with the landlord, with the real estate agent that is responsible for that apartment. And in this space, you then create what we call the snag list. And basically, you need to note down all the things that are broken, the damage that is done there, or the damage that is existing before you actually move into the house, so that when you do move out, and let's say for instance a cracked tile in the kitchen and you didn't crack the tile but it was there before you've noted it on your snag list, you are then able to say, I did not crack that tile, so therefore I will not, you cannot as the landlord use my deposit to replace that tile. The other thing that you possibly might need to do is to actually take pictures, put them on a folder, put them in the cloud. We've got the cloud now. You will not lose them even if you lose your phone, provided you are putting them on the cloud. This will also assist you again if you need to prove your snag list and items that are already on your snag list. So make sure guys, and I know a lot of people get very excited about moving into their new apartment. They forget to do the snag list. They depend on the real estate agent or the landlord to have done a snag list. Then at the end of the term, when they're trying to move out and trying to claim their deposit, and the landlord says to them, yeah, but you guys did 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you've got no evidence to try and dispute whatever the landlord is claiming you have damaged. So it's very important that you remember that. What can you or can you not do with the deposit? You may not use the deposit 1 month where you feel like you don't want to pay rent, and then you say to the landlord, please take from the deposit and as rent for this month. You cannot do that. It is not allowed. You also cannot use it for electricity while you are actually staying in the house. So technically, as a tenant, you may not ask the landlord to use that amount of money for any monies that you're owing while you are actually staying there. And remember also, something that is going to be very important is that you need to ask your landlord to put your deposit into an interest-bearing account, because that is money that they essentially are holding for you, because at the end of your lease period, again, as I said, they need to pay that money back. So how quickly are they supposed to pay that money back? As I said, while you do the incoming inspection, you also need to make sure that you do the outgoing inspection, right? So the outgoing inspection is literally similar to what you do when you are coming in. On the last day, before you hand the keys over to the landlord, you need to walk around the house. When everything is actually out, you walk around into the house and you pinpoint some of the things that were already on the snag list, and then the landlord on their side is going to be looking, or the real estate agent will be looking for any damages that you have caused, right? And the landlord has got every single right to charge up any damages to the deposit. So for instance, when I first moved out, of actually the last house that I moved out of, they charged me for killing the grass in the garden, whatever. So they charged me to replace the grass, and basically that's how it works. But they have to give you the invoices, and they have to give you proof that they've actually paid for those kind of services using your deposit. While you might not have control as to which service provider they use, you do have every right to ask them for an invoice. They must show you how much they've deducted, and they must give you a recon for in case maybe your deposit was 9,000 rand, but the service provider to either clean, to replace the grass, to replace the light bulbs, to replace some tiles was only like 7,000 rand. They need to give you a recon statement of how much of your deposit they've actually used. Right, so it's very important. The only thing that the landlord can actually do is to use the deposit to pay for damages or to recover any monies that you are owing when you are exiting their house. So make sure that you actually do attend that outgoing inspection. Again, I know people get really excited about leaving the place. They just like deuces, I'm heartful of this landlord, and they want to go. But remember, you need to do the outgoing inspection. What can the landlord, how long does the landlord have to pay it? Well, ultimately, they've got 7 days. If you've both done the inspection and you are happy with how the state of the house is, and they're happy with the state of their house, you can then get your money within 7 days. 14 days if there is some issue and they actually pay for certain things using your deposit, and 21 days if you do not attend the inspection. Remember that sometimes it's a little bit hard because things like utilities only get charged at the end of the month, and the landlord might need to still recon your electricity charge, which is why in most cases some landlords and some real estate agents will also require a electricity deposit or a utilities deposit. This is to cover at the end. When can a landlord not take your money? For instance, I got a question the other day. Somebody said, is my landlord or my real estate agent allowed to take the deposit if I am terminating the lease before the end of the actual contract? Not necessarily if you are within the notice period. So all your lease agreements will have a notice period that says that you can terminate the contract, perhaps maybe giving 2 months notice. If you do give 2 months notice, the landlord does not have a right to keep your deposit undue unless you do owe some monies. But if you are leaving without the notice, then you need to get to agreement with your landlord to say, perhaps you can keep the deposit, or I can find you somebody else who can take over the remainder of the lease, and that person then needs to compensate you for the deposit that you have paid. I hope that clears up some questions, but remember that none of my videos constitute as financial advice. If you are looking for financial advice, please consult somebody who is registered and certified and registered with the FSCA. Thank you. Or remember to please subscribe to my YouTube channel.